Now, fans that either sold their tickets or whatever, all of a sudden an emphasis is starting to get thrown onto the tickets where people believe she will be playing. And that's starting to make the ticket prices go up, and up.
The biggest name in basketball will not be in Paris. In a move that sent shockwaves through the sports world, Caitlin Clark, the woman single-handedly rewriting viewership records, was left off the Olympic team. This wasn't just a roster decision, it was a statement. The establishment had made its choice, and it wasn't the rookie phenom who had brought millions of new fans to their doorstep. The decision sparked immediate outrage, with fans and analysts calling it one of the biggest marketing blunders in sports history. But for those watching closely, it wasn't a blunder. It was the culmination of a quiet war that has been raging since the moment Clark's name was called on draft night. A war against the very person who was supposed to be the league's savior, exposing a deep and bitter rot that threatens to consume the league from within.
Fact, ticket sales are down 70% in many places. The Fever played the Mystics 2 nights ago. The cheapest ticket before her injury was announced was $41, okay? The cheapest one. After her injury was announced and people knew that she wasn't gonna be playing, the lowest ticket price dropped to $3. This is the Caitlin Clark effect. The WNBA still doesn't quite realize what they have in Caitlin Clark. She is the absolute golden goose, the golden ticket. She is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They must protect her at all costs.
Before Caitlin Clark, the WNBA was a niche league. After her, ticket prices began rising like she was draining threes on the moon. The change was so drastic, so immediate, that it created 2 distinct eras. Before Caitlin and after Caitlin. In the before, ticket costs were fixed and predictable. In the after, fans were suddenly considering kidney auctions for courtside seats. The Indiana Fever, once an afterthought, were suddenly selling out massive NBA arenas across the country. Viewership numbers didn't just rise, they smashed records to pieces, bringing in millions of viewers who had never watched a women's game before. The league, which had forced its players to fly commercial for decades, suddenly approved charter flights for all teams, a direct consequence of the tidal wave of revenue and attention she dragged in with her. She was an economic tsunami, and the entire league was being lifted by her curve. But that success also illuminated a dark underbelly of resentment that had been festering for years.
Don't hate the player, hate the game she got, you know, because she's really talented, especially for being Palangi, you know? She's like the Stephen Curry of WNBA with the threes and stuff. Like, proven fact is, like, they had a game on June 7th scheduled, you know, it was going to be Ada Reese's team, which plays for Chicago. And then for Caitlin Clark's team, they were supposed to go up there playing Chicago on June 7th. First, the ticket sales were at $76 a ticket. Then after they found out Caitlin Clark's not playing that game, she got injured, sales dropped to $25 a ticket.
The first shot in this undeclared war was fired by a legend, a so-called gatekeeper of the league's culture. Before Clark had even stepped onto a professional court, WNBA icon Diana Taurasi went on national television and delivered a prophecy dripping with condescension. She warned that reality is coming, and that Clark's college heroics meant nothing against grown women. On the surface, it could have been interpreted as veteran advice, but the tone, the smirk, the timing, it was all a clear message. This was the league's old guard, drawing a line in the sand. It was a declaration that Clark's fame was illegitimate, that her welcome had expired before it was even offered, and that they were going to make her life a living hell. It was the moment the veterans were given permission to be hostile, and what followed was the predictable, ugly fallout of that permission.
Fact, ticket sales are down 70% in many places. The Fever played the Mystics 2 nights ago. The cheapest ticket before her injury was announced was $41, okay? The cheapest one. After her injury was announced and people knew that she wasn't going to be playing, the lowest ticket price dropped to $3. This is the Caitlin Clark effect. The WNBA still doesn't quite realize what they have in Caitlin Clark. She is the absolute golden goose, the golden ticket. She is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They must protect her at all costs. You can argue all you want if she's the best player in the league, but you absolutely cannot argue if she's the most important, because she is. She is more valuable than all the other players combined, and that is just a fact.
That verbal hostility quickly turned physical. During a game against the Chicago Sky, the simmering tension erupted into a blatant, undeniable assault. As Caitlin Clark stood waiting for an inbound pass, far from the ball and posing no threat, player Chennedy Carter sprinted up behind her and leveled her with a violent hip check, sending her crashing to the floor. There was no basketball reason for the play. It was a calculated cheap shot, a cowardly act of aggression meant to injure and intimidate. On the broadcast, Carter could be seen mouthing "you little bitch" at Clark moments before the attack. Incredibly, the referees missed it. It was only after a storm of public outrage that the league was forced to sheepishly upgrade the foul to a flagrant 1 penalty. That single moment stripped away all plausible deniability. This wasn't rookie hazing. This was a targeted campaign, and the league's players were now willing to cross the line from competition into outright violence.
WNBA is now suffering a major injury as Caitlin Clark is going to be out for 2 weeks with a quad injury. And the reason we're bringing this up specifically is the Clarkonomics effect of this. Obviously, players miss time all the time, but the Sky and the Fever were supposed to play in Chicago in about a week on June 7th. The opening ticket price was $86 because you have the Angel Resource Caitlin Clark Showdown that is now box office. Yeah, those tickets are now down to $25. Down to $25 after the injury announcement. And it's supposed to take place in the Bulls Arena, the United Center, as opposed to the normal Wintrust Arena. That's about a 12,000 seat difference, give or take. So
the Carter incident wasn't an isolated event. It was merely the most visible part of a league-wide conspiracy of silence and side eyes. A clear pattern of behavior emerged. Players were setting bone-jarring, often illegal screens on her. She was being hit with extra elbows after the whistle and shoved when the refs weren't looking. After games, the passive aggression was suffocating. Players would post cryptic Instagram stories about earning respect for veterans, as if the rookie single-handedly airing their games on national television for the first time in years wasn't earning it. Angel Reese, her college rival, seemed to revel in any opportunity to taunt her on the court and offer dismissive, eye-rolling answers in press conferences. It became obvious that this wasn't about 1 or 2 resentful players. It was an unspoken code, a silent agreement to punish Caitlin Clark for the unforgivable crime of being a star.
It's a support system. That shouldn't change. I think, Caitlin knows that she has the ears and eyes in the locker room and the support that she has behind, whether it's us or anybody else. I would like to think that she knows it's there and to really take her time and make sure that she's, well enough to be who she needs to be for us, because I want the 100% Caitlin, so I'll take it.
The irony is that these players are attacking the very person holding the rope that's pulling them out of obscurity. Some players seem fundamentally unable to understand that Clark is not their rival. She is their elevator. Her rising tide is lifting all their boats, increasing salaries, driving up franchise valuations, and securing massive new media deals that will benefit everyone. But instead of simply getting on for the ride to the top, some seem obsessed with trying to cut the cables. This bizarre, self-sabotaging jealousy is louder than a buzzer beater. They are behaving as though Clark showed up and personally stole their endorsement deals and their lunch money, when in reality, she's the reason new multi-million-dollar deals are even on the table. It is a stunning display of professional malpractice, a league actively at war with its own best interests.
Turns out she's human after all, Dan. She's going to be out for at least a couple of weeks, it appears.
Yeah, what's interesting about Caitlin Clark? Remember last year, she played in the Final Four. Right after that, she went immediately to the WNBA. Draft came, season started, and, didn't miss a beat. And all of a sudden, she got a little rest and comes back, gets a little banged up. I heard you talking about it earlier, and it's going to be fascinating to me, Ricky. I've been to Fever games, and the one thing you notice, and this is more so than even when Peyton Manning was the quarterback of the Colts.
As the controversy raged, a far more complex and sensitive conversation began to emerge from the shadows of social media and sports talk radio. Was this just jealousy, or was there a deeper, unspoken divide at play? The elephant in the room was race. Clark, a white player, was being hailed as the great savior of a predominantly black league, receiving a level of media adoration that many black stars who had toiled for years never got close to. The narrative, pushed by a largely white media, understandably grated on veteran players who felt their contributions were being erased overnight. This painful undercurrent added a volatile new layer to the conflict, suggesting the on-court aggression wasn't just about fame, but also about a deep-seated deep-seated frustration with a system that has historically undervalued and overlooked black female athletes.
Word to describe Caitlin Clark.
Amazing. A beast. She is the truth. She's the truth, and she was a rookie. Knock down the three-pointer, get to the rim. She can get to the free throw line. She's crafty.
Yeah, very crafty.
Crafty, so sometimes she look like she's coming off for a three-point shot and she backdoors you for a layup. She gets her teammates involved. She can pass, she can shoot. Man, she is the complete.
The Clark phenomenon then entered a new, almost surreal phase. Her influence became so massive that it persisted even when she wasn't there. On her designated off nights, arenas were still packed with fans wearing her jersey, holding signs, chanting her name. They came not to see the game, but on the off chance they might catch a glimpse of her on the bench. Outside the venues, scalpers swarmed as if she were the main act at Coachella, selling tickets for a game she wasn't even scheduled to play in. Some teams haven't seen that level of attention since the Obama administration was in office. Suddenly, the absence of one rookie was a bigger story than the entire starting lineup of the home team. This was a level of star power the league had never witnessed, and it only seemed to make her opponents even more bitter. Naturally, as Clark's fame exploded, the media circus followed. Every game became a combination of National Geographic and ESPN, with camera angles that might as well have been drones tracking the untamed Caitlin in her native hardwood environment. Every move she made was dissected by a panel of frothing analysts. When she scratched her nose, 5 different blogs would publish articles questioning if she was injured. When she got hip-checked, it led sports radio discussions for days. Casual fans who had never heard of a zone defense were now debating it on TikTok. The athlete should have been celebrating this unprecedented exposure with champagne. Instead, many doubled down on their ancillary remarks, insisting she hasn't proven herself yet. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. She had demonstrated more cultural power in 15 minutes than some teams had in 15 seasons, with their biggest star being treated like a human piñata and their league at the center of a national controversy. All eyes turned to the WNBA's front office for leadership. What they got was a deafening, embarrassing silence. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert offered only weak, generic statements about the physicality of the sport, refusing to condemn the cheap shots or acknowledge the obvious targeting of her league's most valuable asset. The fines that were eventually handed out were a joke, a slap on the wrist that did nothing to deter the behavior. For the millions of new fans watching, it was an unforgivable failure. The league had been handed the simplest alley-oop in sports history, a transcendent star to build around, and they were fumbling it in spectacular fashion, seemingly content to let the bullies run the playground. As if the inaction wasn't bad enough, what came next was even more insulting. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert suddenly began a victory tour, acting as though she had personally slam dunked the league into its newfound prominence. She started giving interviews and PowerPoint presentations on how I saved the WNBA, as if Caitlin Clark were some intern she had hired to manage Gatorade logistics. Let's be clear, Kathy Engelbert did not break college viewing records. She did not create a national retail craze for jerseys, and she certainly did not teach an entire generation of men who had never watched women's sports the meaning of a dribble handoff. She is clinging to the edge of a tremorous cultural earthquake that she had absolutely nothing to do with creating, and she's trying to sell tickets to the disaster. What the league's veterans and its leadership failed to grasp is that Caitlin Clark isn't just another great player. She possesses a quality that transcends basketball, the velocity of culture. Tiger Woods did it for golf. Serena Williams did it for tennis. It's that strange, unteachable lightning in a Gatorade bottle that is impossible to replicate. It's an energy that reshapes an entire sports ecosystem, drawing in people who never cared before. No one is claiming she is flawless. Clark makes turnovers, gets blocked, and has off nights, but her power is that she earned this platform, not because she requested it, but because she sparked a movement, and rather than harnessing that energy, the league is attempting to stifle it with forced elbows and salty press conferences. This is no longer just a story about basketball. It's a civil war for the soul of the WNBA. The league has arrived at a historic crossroads. On one side stands Caitlin Clark, representing a revolution of new fans, new money, and a future in the global spotlight. On the other stands a resentful old guard, more focused on gatekeeping their small kingdom than helping build an empire. They are allowing petty jealousy to cloud their judgment, risking a golden age for a moment of bitter satisfaction. The Caitlin Clark effect has given the WNBA a lottery ticket to mainstream relevance. The only question that remains is whether the league will cash it in, or if it will let its own internal conflicts tear it up before their very eyes.